Hey, what is going on, guys? It is Hoxus here. Now, today I actually wanted to show you guys a little graphics pack or Photoshop template that I made for you guys. Now, this template is specifically for Teamfight Tactics, which is a certain game. If you guys are watching the video, you more than likely know what that is. But you can also use the graphics for other things. It relates kind of loosely to League of Legends, so you might be able to use it for that. And then also the text on it is a certain text style. So if you like the thumbnail of this video and you wanted to kind of incorporate some aspects of that into your thumbnails for a different game, you can definitely do that with this graphics pack. So this channel, I actually don't upload Teamfight Tactics just because it's very different to the genre of the game that I play on here, which is a Battle Royale. But if you guys want to watch me play Teamfight Tactics and see every thumbnail and maybe get inspiration, blah, blah, blah. If you guys would like to do that, kind of support my Teamfight Tactics channel, you can go ahead and sub to it down below. The link will be in the description and the comments. But really quickly, just show you guys some of the thumbnails you can make with it and then just how to use the graphics pack in general. Alright, so heading over to Photoshop. Now that's one thing you absolutely need is you need Photoshop. Unless you have software that can open up a PSD file and edit it, I think maybe GIMP might be able to do that. I don't know for sure. But Photoshop is definitely something you're going to want to get. Anyway, once you're in Photoshop, you want to open the document that is linked down below. I'll have like a Google Drive with a bunch of stuff. You can just download it, look at it, whatever. Should be super simple. In fact, go ahead and show it real quick. But so the page should look something like this, and then there'll be a document that says template or graphics pack.psd. It'll be right around here. You just double click that, download it, and then when you're done, you open it and you'll have it in Photoshop, and it should look almost exactly like this. Okay, so now you guys can actually see the bottom right where all the layers are. Now, these layers are very important. Let me go through a couple really quickly. So basically what this little file is it's a border template. Now, if you look at all of these items, I put a border on it just to make it look pretty good. Just makes it look a lot nicer, more realistic, as opposed to just the picture of the item. Now, if new items ever come out in TFT, which if they do, I should update the template myself. But if you ever want this border for any reason, blah, 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 that's this little file on the top. Most of the time, you shouldn't need to use it or have to use it at all. But I wanted to include it just in case people were kind of wondering or wanted to use it for something else. So that's that top file. If you look at the bottom right, that's what that is. And yeah, so go ahead and hide that and disregard it for now. Now, I'm going to go ahead and switch down to the text. Now, the text is a folder. You can expand it by pressing this little arrow. And you have a couple different text files. You have two different ones. Now, I just want to tell you guys that the font used in this is the font Grow Bold. Now, this is the font I personally like. If you guys want to get it, you can. I think the download of that font will actually also be in the Google Drive. But the font is Grow Bold. If you want to do a different font, you can. I'll go ahead and throw on a different one really quickly, show you guys what it looks like. So there's just a couple fonts that I use. If you did Adventure, that's what that would look like. But the way that I have it set up is I have Grow Bold for both of them, and then I have a silverish, grayish, whitish kind of color, and then I have a gold, just because I think gold really draws in the eye for thumbnails, and it also matches the color of the stars. So it just kind of makes it, the whole thumbnail will have a little bit of continuity to it. It'll all kind of tie together. So if you guys want to do that, there you go. You have your two font files. I'll show you guys what you can do with that, or not font files, text files. If you guys want to play around with that stuff, you can. You can see all the effects right below it. So you have like the drop shadow, you have the gradient overlay, and that just adds the gold and the color. You have the satin, which makes it have like a texture. So right here, just really flat. The satin adds like a gold, like highlight and low light texture to it. Inner glow does a similar thing, kind of brightens up some parts and makes it look a little bit more metally. Stroke, black stroke, just because you can not have it. I honestly think it actually looks really cool without it. But I like having a stroke just because it's kind of the look I'm going for. And then the bevel and emboss is the same thing. It kind of raises it, makes it have this like edge around it that looks very metallic. All those same things apply to the other one, which is gray. The only difference is that the gradient overlay is gray colors as opposed to gold colors. So you can go ahead and close that folder like this. Stars are basically just literally 3 star files. They don't have any effects on it. At least this one has it has an effect. Let me go ahead and clear that. There you go. So you have 3 stars. You can just hide them by toggling the little eye. And then the things that make them look pretty nice compared to the background is a little black stroke and a drop shadow. Honestly, the drop shadow is the most important part. As you can see, it doesn't look as good like that as opposed to having the drop shadow. At least personally, I don't think it does. You can also add other things. Again, I'm gonna have a stroke on it just because I have a stroke, kind of to match the text a little bit. But yeah, so that's the stars. If you want to move them around, what you can do is press V and you just drag them and move them around and they'll move. It's a little bit laggy because I'm recording. Same applies to the text. The text file, just you can move it around, goes wherever. If you want to move the individual elements, all you do is you go into text and then move the individual elements. All right, next thing is the items. Now, there's a ton of items. This is every single item in the game. Now, if you guys want to expand the file, once again, you press the little arrow, and then you have all of these items. I named them generally what they are. The assassin item, I kind of forgot what it is. I would probably rename all the files to be exactly what the in-game item is named. I just called this one Assassin because this is the item that makes your champion an assassin. But then the rest of them, needlessly large rod, BF, bow, tier, spat, Zeke's herald, different things should kind of help you guys figure out what each is. But they're all named. Keep scrolling down, and yeah, so Shiv, Rage, Renons, all that stuff. Now, one thing I want to point out is probably right now you can't tell, but some of them are a little bit more HD than others. Like if you look at the rapid fire cannon compared to the Rabadons right here, you can tell the rapid fire is a little bit more HD. The PD, the Morellos, the Titanic Hydra, the Glacial, and the, I think, Knight and Red Buff. Those ones are the most HD. The rest of them are a little bit less. But again, if you're zooming out like this, what your thumbnail will look like, nobody will be able to tell. So the quality difference really doesn't matter. Also, Spatula is a little bit more HD as well. But once again, a thumbnail, nobody will ever notice that unless they're super zoomed in, like they got their face in it, which basically no one will look at. So that's basically what the items are. If you want to get each individual item, all you have to do is you just open up this folder, press V to get your move tool, or you can press the move tool up here, and then you just move it. So this one, I'm on the needlessly large rod, and you can move it. But I wouldn't recommend moving any of this because this is like your template. You don't really want to mess with the template a whole lot. Or a graphics pack, rather. Alright, so that's items. Now, synergies. This is where it gets a little bit more complicated because there's so many potential synergies that it took a while. So, number one, I actually recreated every synergy. None of this is a screenshot. It is actually all me recreating it. So, if we go ahead and zoom in on the synergy. For now, it just has my logo just because I needed some kind of like watermark type thing on this. So, there we have my logo on it. Now, if you go into the synergies, what you're going to see is my logo. S dash means synergy, basically. I just did that to kind of clear up what each file is. Now, if you look on the right, under the Synergies folder, you can see S-Hawksnest. You can go ahead and hide that. I just have it on for now for the video purposes. Now, below these two folders, these two folders right here, you're going to have gold, silver, bronze, and then you're going to have synergies. Now, basically what this is in the game, you either have a gold synergy, a bronze synergy, or a silver synergy. I might have went out of order. And then you also have synergies that aren't actually on, but I don't think you'd want a thumbnail of a synergy that's not actually on, so I didn't make that. But here we go. So we have gold, which is currently on. If I turn that off, we have silver. If we turn that off, we have bronze. Now, all of these have effects on it to make it look like the actual in-game synergy metal thing. So if I turn off the stroke, that's what, well, hold on, I'd have to hide the other ones. So this is what it looks like without a stroke. This is what it looks like without the inner glow. This is what it looks like without a gradient overlay. So just adding those three elements make it look like the actual in-game synergy. And then same applies for the silver. If I turned off all the effects, it's just a white hexagon. And then same thing for silver. So anyway, so say you wanted to do gold shapeshifter, right? So all you do is you go ahead and hide the rest and you turn on gold. So now you have gold. Then what you do is you can close that little folder. You go into synergies. You then look for the one you want. So I literally have every single synergy in here. So this is what it looks like when they're all on. It's just like a cluster of a mess, basically. But if you want to get a specific one, you do is just go in here and look for it. So I think shapeshifter is what I said. You take shapeshifter, boom. You hold down Alt because that'll copy it, and then you just drag it out of the folder. So I'm just gonna go ahead and drag it into the gold folder or whatever. So boom, now we have shapeshifter inside the gold folder, and what you can do is just go ahead and hide synergies and close it, and then boom, your shapeshifter is right there. So that's how you turn it on. And then if you wanted it, if you're done with it or whatever, just go ahead and delete that because it's a copy. You don't need it. But yeah, so I'm gonna go ahead and Control Z to undo. But there we go. That's what the gold shapeshifter synergy would look like. Now, once again, all of these synergies actually recreated, so you can tell it's like a really nice quality. It only gets a little bit pixelated when you zoom in, but if you're like right here, it looks super clean. Go ahead and delete that. But if I go back into synergies, if I wanted to do like Elementalist, go ahead and drag it out and then hide the folder. That's what Elementalist looks like. Again, you guys can go in the file and look at all of these if you want to, but some of them are really, really good, like almost perfect exact copies. Some of them are a little off, but nobody would be able to tell the thumbnail size. You just have to really zoom in to be able to see that. So anyway, that's how you do that. So now that you know how to mess with everything within the graphics pack, we'll go ahead and show you how to make a thumbnail. Also, the background is nothing really. It's just like an old thumbnail. I blurred it just to kind of have a backdrop. It was just some Nard thumbnail I made, and then I put a Gaussian blur on it, which you can do if you're wondering, in filter, blur, and then Gaussian blur. So I just did that. really nothing doesn't matter. But yeah, let's go ahead and show you guys how to make a thumbnail. Now, when you're in Photoshop, what you want to do. When you're in Photoshop, this is what you want to do. You want to go File, New, and then you will have this little thing pop up. And then what you want to do is you want to name it if you want to. So this will be Test Thumbnail. Your width, you want to be 1920 by 1080, or width 1920 and height 1080. Now, if your computer is a little bit slower and you can't really run stuff at this quality, what I would recommend is doing 1280 by 720. But I would really recommend 1920 by 1080, only because this thumbnail, or the stuff, the graphics pack that I provide you, is a custom for the size 1920 by 1080. It's made to fit that size specifically. So 1920 by 1080, resolution 300. I think you can do any resolution for thumbnails, doesn't really matter. It only really matters if you're gonna print it. I just always do 300 because that's just kind of a standard. Anyway, the rest of the settings, if you want to copy, I don't think you mess with any of this, but if it is different from what I have right here, just go ahead and change it. But yeah, so then from here, you go create. You're gonna have a white thumbnail right now. And then what I typically do, very first thing I do is I go in my video. So typically what I do is I go in one of my videos. So right here, this is just some random one. Go to some cool fighting moment or something. It really doesn't matter. It kind of depends on what vision you have for the video. But right here, I have a tier 3 Rengar decked out. So what I might do is go here, print screen, close that. Print screen, by the way, is on the keyboard. You guys can't see my keyboard, but that will screenshot it. So make sure to try to find the print screen button on your keyboard. And then just go here and Control V. That'll paste the screenshot. And then boom, you have this. Then what you want to do is go to your selection tool up here, which is on the top left. And then just select a chunk of it. I'm just going to probably do that. Doesn't really matter because this is going to be kind of blurred out in the background anyway. You just want to have it kind of be the TFT theme. What I did, by the way, right there was after I made the selection, I did Control J. And what that does is it creates a copy of the selection you made. So you had your original photo, which was like this big. Make a little selection, press Control J, and it like copies just that little portion. So Control J is what did that. Or if you're on a Mac, I think Command J. Basically all these controls, if you do Command on a Mac instead of Control, it should do the same. Then you do Control T. And then you have little, like, you can move it around and you can scale it now because it has little handles. Then you hold down shift to scale it evenly. If you don't hold down shift, you could accidentally do this, which makes it look weird. But if you do accidentally not hold down shift and then you're doing this, just press shift and it'll fix it. But I'm going to go ahead and scale it up like that. Now, what I'm going to do personally, there's a couple different things. I highly recommend blurring it because you want the background to be kind of blurry so the text and stuff on the front really pops out. Two blurs that I like is I do Gaussian blur. And then I just pump it up. And then it'll look kind of like that. That's one that I like to do a lot. Or I like to do Radial blur. Filter Radial blur. This one you don't actually get a preview. You have to actually press OK to see what it looks like. I do zoom, quality best. And then I do amount like 15. And then press OK. And it should, yeah, it kind of blurs it. You can see it kind of is like a zoom effect. And the zoom looks like it's centered right here. So if you don't like it centered right there, just Control Z. Go to Filter, Blur, Radial blur, and then this right here, you see this little like box, you can just move where you want the point to be. So if it was right here before, I wanted to go to the left on Rengar, so I'm just gonna go ahead and move it to the left a little bit, press OK, and boom, it looks like it's pretty much on Rengar now. It doesn't really matter. I also want it to be blurred a little bit more, so I'm gonna do filter, and then on the top it'll actually show you the last one that you did, the last blur. So I'm just gonna do that to duplicate the effect. And it should blur even more. So boom, there we go, we have an effect. And then obviously if you want to move it around, you can do that still. And it'll have all that blur. So we'll do it like right here maybe. I don't really know. At this point, I don't mess with it too much because I don't know what the final thumbnail will look like. I kind of just have it now for a background. Now what you want to do, this is the fun part. So now if you go into my folder, which is the Hawksnest TFT folder, you can go to champions and I'll have a bunch of champion files. Right now I only have a few. Constantly updating it. But you can find your champion that you want to put in. If you can't actually find the one that you want in the folder, you can always go look it up on Google. Just look up the champion PNG and then just try to find a file. But let's just go ahead and say we did like, I don't know, I think Draven always looks cool. So say we were actually doing a Draven game, blah, 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 blah. You just press this on Google Drive and then top right, you download. Alright, so for whatever reason, my PC is actually being really whack. It's not letting me drag and drop full files. I don't know why, it's being weird. But what you can do is go to File, Open, and then you just go locate where you downloaded the photo. So let me go find it real quick. Okay, then you just locate the file, press Open, and it'll open. So now we have the Draven, basically. Now, the way you want to get this from this, this file to the thumbnail file is what you do is you go here, and you drag it. So you see the little file right here, it says layer 1, which is the Draven. Has a transparent background. As you can see, as we move it, the background doesn't move. So you just go ahead and drag that. Hover over your, if you look at the top left, you can see what I'm doing. You hold it over your thumbnail, which is test thumbnail in this case, and then you drag it here and release, and then boom, you have Draven. So as you can tell, there's a little cut off on the top, so what you can do is Control T, and then once again hold down Shift, and grab the bar and scale it, and then place them where you want to. So go ahead and do that. So there you go, you now have your champion on your thumbnail. Now if you want to add a drop shadow, what you can, you just go right here, press the character, which is layer 3. I'm going to go ahead and rename it to Draven. Then you go to here and then press FX, drop shadow, and then you can throw on a drop shadow if you want to. You can mess with the settings. If you want to copy my settings, you can. Sometimes I add just a really faint drop shadow just to kind of make it stand out from the background, as you can tell. So go ahead and do that. If you wanted to put him over here, you could. His axis is really big, so I'm going to kind of put him here. There. Okay, so now you have your Draven plus your background, which is two of the most important parts that you'd actually have to do on your own. The rest of it is really just drag and drop and very easy. So let's say in this case he had an RFC. This makes it very easy. You go into your graphics pack, and then you go into your items and you expand the folder. Now what you can do is go ahead and scroll down until you find RFC, or I think I named it RFC. Yeah, right here. And you can drag it over. Or if you don't want to scroll through here and look for it, what you can do is hold down Control and then right click the item you want. So say I want the, let's just say I want the RFC, right? Hold down Control, right click it, and it'll say items, which is the folder it's in, and then RFC. And then you just go ahead and press that, and bottom right it'll pop up. So if I want the Dragon's Claw, hold down Control, right click, Dragon Claw, and then boom, it's right there. If I hide it, it'll take a sec because it's lagging, but yeah. So I want the RFC. I'm gonna go ahead and right click this RFC, and then I just take this and drag it up to test thumbnail and release, and then boom, we have one of our items. Then I say I want a, let's say we made him an assassin, so I'm gonna right click, or sorry, that's Bork. Say I made him an assassin right there, boom. Grab it, drag it, boom, and then if you press V, which should already be selected, you can move it around. And then you should see these little like purple things popping up around it. Basically, these are just little guides to make sure you're kind of matching stuff up. So right here, it's kind of snapping in place. If you don't see these, do Control H. So right now I just did Control, oops. So if you don't see these, do Control H. So right now, see, I'm not seeing them. I still feel the snaps happening, but I don't actually see like the little lines. If you do want to see that, Control H will make them pop up. But boom, so I line those up. Just make them slightly spread apart. Then we go back up here, TFT items. I want to do, let's say we did Bloodthirster would be a good one. So right click BT, go ahead, grab it from the bottom right, drag it over, and then put it here. So now that you have all those, you have them there. It's nice. You can move them one by one. So if you want to move the assassin item, just put it up here. Do the BT, put it here. Do whatever order you want. You can make them really close if you want. Doesn't really matter. This is where your own little creativity comes in. Now, this is what I would do. You could apply a drop shadow to each one. And the drop shadow makes it really stick out from the background. I think drop shadows always make it look really clean. But this is the problem. If you do that, if you add a drop shadow to your Bloodthirster, if you look, if I really pump it up, you can see it's covering the other ones. It's not like applying a drop shadow to all of them together. So if you want to apply them together, or you can even do this, like if you have one item that really stands out among the rest, the other two are kind of trash, you could do this, make it look cool. But if you want to make them all have a drop shadow together, what you do is you take all three items, you hold down Shift to select all three. So boom, I went from the top to the bottom, they're all selected, and then you do Control G, and that basically is control group. Now you have them in a group. So now when you add a drop shadow, it'll apply to all of them together. So now if I just pump this up, you can see the drop shadow is around all three. But I'm gonna go ahead and make it a little bit lighter. What I like to do is I put the size down and the spread up, something like along the lines of that, typically. So there, now you have the items, and also when you press V and move it around, it'll move all three of them together because they're in a group. So you can put them wherever you want. I don't recommend putting them in the bottom right. The only reason I don't recommend putting them in the bottom right is because the bottom right normally has a little thing on thumbnails that looks kind of like this. Typically, it'll have like the little timestamp of the video, like how long the video is right here. It'll look not like this, but kind of similar, so you can see how that would be a problem. Kind of covers up your items. You don't really want that, so just bottom right general area I try to avoid. You can put stuff there, but if it's like the title or something important, I wouldn't recommend putting it there. Anyway, so put these items, I would put them like right here probably. If you guys want to see an example of a thumbnail I did with Draven, Draven's kind of interesting because you kind of have to have them on the left because the axes are so big. So you could put them right there. That actually works. But yeah, so it's a little bit more difficult to make a thumbnail because you got to put everything on the right side now. And as I said, right side's little bit more difficult to work with. Let me pull up a thumbnail I made. So I actually had 109 gold at one point in this thumbnail, so I put it in the bottom right just to kind of fill up some space. But again, it'll slightly be covered right around here. So that's why I didn't do like items or stars or title. Now, once you have your items, so say I have that, and you want to do your title. Now, if you could do your text however you want, but if you want to use the text I provided, all you do is you go here, scroll up, close the items folder. Go ahead and grab the text folder and then just drag it over to your test thumbnail. And then boom, you have your text. So now it just says graphics pack, but obviously if you wanted to say, I don't know, like, we made him assassin. So assassin, I think I spelled that right. Is it 2 S's? Assassin. I think that's right. Assassin Raven. Exclamation point. You do that. So obviously the text is too big, so you just Control T, hold down Shift, and then move it, and then put it wherever you would like to. Put the assassin. So you can also drag stuff, but sometimes it won't like actually grab. So as you can see, I'm trying to move assassin, and it won't move. So what you can do is, like I said, right-click your file, and then select what you want. So boom. Now we have this selected. Put it here. If you want to rotate it, just do this. Control T and then rotate. I kind of like having a rotation where this is downwards and this is upwards just a little. I think it looks pretty cool. You can also press V and use the arrow keys to kind of move stuff if you want to get very finite. V basically just means move if you press the letter V. So if I want to move Draven, right click it, select, press V, and just arrow key it around. That's good, right? So I like it right there. So that's pretty much what you do. Now, if you also had like a 3-star Draven, I would never do 1-star ever, because that's kind of like, why are you posting them out of 1-star? 1-stars are given. But if you do get a 2-star legendary unit or a 2-star Draven, even like the 4-cost units, or if you get a 3-star, then what you want to do is you want to go to the TFT items, grab the stars, go ahead and drag it in test thumbnail, and then you have all 3 stars. And I typically just put it kind of by the items. So like that. Again, if I show you the Draven thumbnail that I had, the WTF one, I had the stars above the items like this. And again, you don't have to use both text, so if you want to hide one of them, if you just want assassin or WTF or whatever, you can just do one like that. But I like to have 2 sometimes. So anyway, I think the stars look a little bit cooler on top. Obviously, you want to have your own unique flair, so mess around with stuff. Also, I'm going to take the star. I accidentally put the stars folder inside the text folder. Drag that out of it, and then collapse the text folder. But yeah, so now if I do that, and I move the stars down a little bit, like that, and then I go to my group 1, which I'm going to rename to items. Put that there. Boom. So there you have a thumbnail. Again, this was kind of quickly thrown together. I would try to get proportions more right. Like, I don't really like how these are really close to this. I think the items and stars are a little too big, so I could do press items and then hold down Control and select stars. The reason I'm not holding Shift is because if I held down Shift, it would select everything in between stars and items. So you see how text is selected. If you hold down Control, you can just select individual folders. So I do items and then stars, Control T, and go ahead and shrink it down, and then press V and arrow key it around, or drag it around. So there you go. You'd have a thumbnail essentially. Again, as I was saying before, the background really doesn't matter as long as it doesn't detract from what you're trying to look at. So if I go back and I Control V, this is what it would look like without a blur. And as you can see, that's fine. But I personally think the blur looks a little cooler. I don't know. Again, it's your own creative touch. Do whatever you want. But yeah, so there is your general thumbnail. Now, how you export it is you go to File, go to Export, Export As. Then you just wait a sec. And then you just want to make it a JPEG. And then you just export it and just leave the settings normal. Hopefully it looks kind of like this, and then you just export. Now, if for some reason